Hello and welcome back to this Scriptcase Fundamentals training. In this class you will learn how to organize the various elements such as the field blocks and fields within the form application. Changing the layout of a form can drastically improve its usability. Within Scriptcase there are many options which would allow you to configure your forms in any way you choose. It is, however, important to note that the majority of what I'm covering during this class can also be applied to all other Scriptcase applications, such as the grid, chart, and so forth. So let's begin. I will start by creating a new form using the customers table, which is available within the samples database, and I will go ahead and create that. Once the form is created, I can begin to customize the form. Now, if I run the default, we can have a brief reminder of what the default form would look like for this table within the samples database. So we have here our basic fields, we have some address fields, some card information, and the standard layout that we have with the form application and most Scriptcase applications. Once the form is created, I can begin to customize the form. Now, within the application menu and form settings, I have the option layout available. If I click on this, it will expand and provide the options which would allow me to make modifications to the page and layout of the form. So let's take a look at the option blocks. Basically, blocks are elements used to group the form fields, such as a container. By default, the form only has one block, but you can add as many as you want. If the block is empty, it will not be displayed within the form. So it is important that a block also contains some fields. I will start by creating a new block, and I will name the block BLK Customer. And then I will include the label Customer and click the Create button. I will then enable the title display by clicking the checkbox. This will display the label I had defined within the form as the block title. I can also select to display or hide the field labels per block. For the option label position, I will leave it as beside, but I could set this as above or below the fields, which will move the label. Next to that, I can define how many columns I want to use in the block. And then if I want to, I could set the field to be beside the labels, below, or even in line. Beside the position option, I can define the position of the next available block, if it will be below, beside, or in tabbed format. And then I can define the width of the block, which is by default set to 100%. In the final setting available, I can specify if the block will collapse, or if it will start opened, no, as closed. In the final setting available, I can specify if the block will collapse, if it will start opened, or if it will start as closed. If I run the form, notice that the new block is not yet visible. This is because the block doesn't have any fields assigned to it yet, as mentioned previously. So I need to add them for the block to become visible. Going back to Scriptcase, I now want to add some fields to my new block so that it will be displayed. To do that, I have two options available. I can either view the Edit Fields option or the Fields Positioning. Using either, I can move the available fields into the newly created block. I will go with the Edit Fields option. So now here, I can view the available fields as well as the new block I have created. I can either drag the block itself or I can drag the individual fields and adjust their position. If I go ahead and place some of the fields into the new block and adjust the block for the customer information, and I can also adjust some of the fields around so that the block and fields available make a little more sense. And then when I'm ready, I can go ahead and run the form again. And you can now see the block with the relevant fields and the settings defined, which allow for opening and also closing of the block element. Okay, so now I will go back to the block settings and create a new block. This time I will call the block Shipping and also provide a shipping label. Click the Create button and my new block is created. In the customer block, I will define that the shipping block will be beside it. Selecting next and indicating beside, I will then also adjust the width of the customer block and adjust the width of the shipping block. Next, in the shipping block, I will specify two columns. Now I still need to add fields to the newly created block shipping. So I will use again the Edit Fields option to place the new fields into the new block and also drag the block right into place so that the fields will be automatically added. I can execute the form again. And now we can see that we have two blocks as well as the shipping block with no title yet, but we have the two columns. So let's return back to Scriptcase and return back to the blocks and also activate the label for the shipping, run the form again, and we now also have two collapsible containers within our form. Okay, so I'll return now back to Scriptcase. And within Scriptcase, we're viewing the block settings again. Now do notice the pencil button that I have now available next to each block. Using that, I can customize the block further. So I will click on it and it will open the block's advanced settings. Here you can see there are some extra options such as the title alignment, block height, cell spacing, and many other visual options which you can apply to the individual block. Once satisfied with the changes you have made, you just need to click the Save button. You can then continue with the configuration of the form. Continuing with the side menu option layout, there is another option which will allow us to create a page. So let's go ahead and do that and add a new page to the form. Within the layout options, you will find pages. Clicking that will present the page settings, which is where we can then create new pages, which are handled as blocks or displayed as tabs within the form. You can create a page in the application. By default, we have Pag 1, which is the standard page, as you have been seeing so far. Now, if I add a name and then select to include, it will add a new page into the form. I will also include a label as it will be the tab title. To the right of that, we can also include an icon if we so choose. As with blocks, the new page will not yet be displayed within our form. So if I go ahead and run it now, we will not yet see it here available. Back in Scriptcase, we again need to move fields into the new page. So this time I will use the fields positioning within the left-hand menu, and here we can quickly adjust where we want to have our information displayed. So let's then access the edit fields again and go ahead and drag the page above the shipping block and then also the customer block, and we can go ahead and then run the form again. Viewing the form now, we can see that we now have two pages identified by two tabs with our information within the form separated and organized very differently. Okay, so now let's run that and we can view the result. In page 1, it now has the single customer block, and in page 2, it has also the containers or blocks which we have placed in there with all the relevant fields. Okay, so now let's return to Scriptcase and now in form settings, layout, and this time I will select settings. There you can define the template that you want to use for the form header and also for the footer. So there are quite a few available which you can select from, each one quite different from the other, each of which includes standard HTML code and can also include various variables. I will select the default here for both the header and the footer. Scriptcase includes plenty of HTML templates, so there are quite a few available which you can select. Below that, I can select the buttons that I want to use within this form, as well as the theme. Do note that each of these options use the included Scriptcase tools and options which you can access and modify and customize within the main menu. There you can create your own headers and footers, make changes to the buttons and the themes. Do note that each of these options use the included Scriptcase tools, which you can access, modify and customize within the main menu. There you can create your own headers and footers, make changes to the buttons and themes, save them, and then apply them within your own project and individual application. Okay, now let's go to the header and footer settings within the menu, and we can now see that we have our header and footer settings. There is an option to switch on or switch off the header and footer on both. Within the header and footer settings, I can manage each of which independently. I can switch on or off the header as well as the footer. To the top here, I have the title as well as the update title, which will be displayed on the form. Below that, I have the variables which can be applied. Now, each of these fields, which are available for the variables, can be configured and specified within the header template. When creating the template, you can add multiple variables, which can then be inserted via this system within Scriptcase. Here we can then change what kind of information will be displayed within this field. We can indicate that it is a dedicated field of the form. We can also specify that it is the form title. We can change also to a date, so that date is displayed. We can specify an image, and we can also provide a custom variable or value. Below that, we can see that we also have a dedicated field for the logo and also the title. So here within the data, I will select date, and then when date is selected, we have here a open date formatting help indication. Clicking that will present us with some examples which we can use. We could simply copy and paste that into the field, or we can specify or provide our own. The footer function is exactly the same, as in we can specify here the field types and values that we want to provide for each field when of course the footer is displayed. So now within the header, I will also define an image and place within the header a Scriptcase logo, add the selected image, the title I will leave as it is, and run the form application again. Okay, so now within the form we can see our result. We have the logo provided as well as some information on the right hand side, which is then the custom header which has now been applied. Thank you for watching this part of the Scriptcase Fundamentals training. I hope to see you again soon in the next class.